I'm proud of the way she takes care of people. Does that make sense? Maggie nodded, wiping her eyes. Then Theresa turned to Claire. You've been feeling stuck. Your grandmother says, pick up the paintbrush again. Claire gasped. She hadn't told anyone that she'd been thinking of quitting teaching to pursue painting again. Erin was already sniffling when Theresa looked at her last. You've been worried about a big decision. She says you already know the answer. You're stronger than you think. Just as the sisters were in full emotional mode, Joe and Q burst in, still in their ridiculous guru costumes, holding plates of bagels. Your grandma also says you should eat these immediately, Joe announced. The sisters laughed through their tears, and even Theresa chuckled. Well, I guess the spirits are in the mood for carbs, she said. After the reading, the sisters were told the whole thing had been arranged by the Impractical Jokers. There was a lot of hugging, a lot of happy crying, and more than a few I can't believe this happened moments. Later, as the cameras wrapped up and the crew packed away the props, Maggie whispered to her sisters, I think Grandma may had a hand in this. I mean, come on, bagels? That's so her. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to my channel. I am Mina. Hope your day is so well. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel. Theresa Caputo, the popular star of Long Island Medium, has sincerely apologized to everyone and asked for blessings. She said that she will be working on another new TV show in addition to the TLC show. She will begin this new journey in the next few days. Although she has not yet given any details, this news was shared by Theresa herself. The sun was just beginning to rise over Hicksville, New York, painting the quiet streets in soft shades of gold. Theresa Caputo sat at her kitchen table, sipping her coffee from a mug that read, The spirits made me do it. She looked out the window, watching the morning light dance on the leaves, but her mind was miles away. For weeks, she had been carrying a secret. A new chapter in her life was about to begin. The night before, she had made a decision. It was time to share her news with the world. She pulled out her phone, opened her social media app, and began typing. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what she was about to announce. I want to start by saying thank you, she wrote. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported me, believed in me, and welcomed me into your hearts and homes through Long Island Medium. I owe you so much. But now, I have something important to share. Theresa paused, feeling the emotion rise in her chest. She wasn't just a TV personality. She was a bridge between two worlds, and the people who watched her weren't just viewers. They were part of her spiritual family. In addition to my beloved TLC show, I'm beginning a brand new project, a different kind of TV experience. It's a show that will take me places I've never been before and connect me with stories I've never told. I can't give all the details yet, but I promise it's going to be something very special. Please keep me in your prayers as I take this step forward. Blessings to you all. She hit post and sat back in her chair. The words were out there now. Within minutes, her phone began buzzing like an old-fashioned landline during a telethon. Hundreds, then thousands of comments poured in. We love you, Theresa. Can't wait to see what you do next. Whatever it is, I know it's going to be amazing. Blessings to you. The spirits will guide you. Theresa smiled, but she knew this wasn't just about TV. This new show, still under wraps, was going to push her far beyond the safe walls of her Long Island reading room. The producers had told her it would involve traveling to remote towns, connecting with people who had never even heard of her work, and uncovering deeply hidden family stories that even the participants didn't know existed. That evening, she sat with her daughter Victoria in the living room. The soft hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. Mom, Victoria said, are you sure you're ready for this? It's going to be a lot. Different places, different people, maybe even different energies. Theresa chuckled. Sweetheart, if there's one thing I've learned in this job, it's that you have to go where the spirits take you. And I feel them nudging me hard toward this. 2 days later, the first official meeting for the new show was held in a small Manhattan studio. The production team greeted her with excitement and a giant vision board covered in images, rural towns, historical archives, black and white family photos, and even a few maps dotted with pins. "This," the director said, "is going to be a journey into the unknown. We'll be following you as you meet people in unexpected places, people who might not even believe in mediums. But by the time you leave, their lives will be changed." Theresa ran her hand over the vision board, feeling a shiver run through her. She could already sense the presence of spirits waiting in those photos, eager to speak. A week later, she packed her suitcase, said goodbye to her family, and climbed into a black SUV that would take her to the airport. As the car pulled away, she whispered a quiet prayer. "All right, Spirit," she said softly. "Let's see where you're taking me this time." And with that, Theresa Caputo began the first steps of her brand new journey, one that would test her, transform her, and touch the hearts of millions in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Somewhere out there, a story was waiting to be told, and Theresa was ready to tell it. However, the sun was dipping low over Long Island, casting a warm amber glow through the windows of a cozy community center. Inside, dozens of folding chairs were lined up in neat rows, filled with people who'd come from all over the state to see the one and only Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. Some people clutched tissues, others nervously fiddled with bracelets or rings, and almost all had the same look in their eyes, the deep ache of longing for someone who had passed on. The air was thick with anticipation, hope, and a touch of disbelief. In the middle of the third row sat Caroline Walters, a woman in her late 30s with chestnut hair pulled into a low ponytail. She had nearly backed out of coming, even after saving for months to afford a ticket. She wasn't sure she believed in mediums. But lately, she'd been having dreams, vivid, strange dreams, of her parents, both of whom had passed away years earlier in a tragic car accident. Her father had been a retired firefighter, her mother a school librarian. They had been her best friends, her anchors, and losing them had left a hole she never truly filled. Tonight, she told herself, she just wanted to see what it's all about. But deep inside, she yearned for something more, proof. A sign. Theresa, dressed in her trademark high heels and black dress, walked out from backstage with a burst of confidence. Her platinum blonde hair seemed to catch the stage lights like a halo, though anyone who knew her would say she was far from angelic in personality, sharp-witted, funny, and full of Long Island attitude. "All right, Spirit's already talking to me," Theresa said, scanning the crowd. "And let me tell ya, they're a chatty bunch tonight." The audience chuckled nervously. Theresa began moving through the aisles, calling out names, describing personalities, sharing details only the loved ones could know. One by one, people nodded through tears as she spoke about mothers, brothers, and best friends from the other side. Then Theresa stopped. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she were tuning into a faint radio signal. She turned toward Caroline. "You, sweetheart in the black sweater, can I talk to you?" Caroline's heart began pounding. She nodded silently. "I have a man and a woman stepping forward for you," Theresa said. "They're together side by side. The man is strong, has this firefighter energy. I keep seeing a badge, and the woman, she's quieter, gentle, but her presence is so warm it's like being wrapped in a blanket." Caroline's breath caught in her throat. "That sounds like my parents," she whispered. Theresa smiled gently. "Your dad's telling me something about the watch. He says, 'Don't you lose that watch, kiddo.'" Caroline's eyes instantly filled with tears. In her jewelry box at home was her father's old firefighter watch, scratched, heavy, and still ticking. It had been the only thing salvaged from the wreck. Theresa continued. "And your mom, she's showing me books. So many books, and she's telling me you've been rereading one she used to read to you as a kid. Something about a girl with a red scarf." Caroline's voice trembled. "And of Green Gables. She read it to me every winter." Theresa's tone softened, almost like she was speaking as the mother herself. She says, "Stop worrying so much about being strong. It's okay to let people see you cry." She's also mentioning a blue teacup. Do you know what that is? Caroline nodded quickly. The blue teacup had been her mother's favorite, and Caroline had kept it in her kitchen for years without ever using it. Theresa took a step closer. "They're telling me they were with you last Thursday night." You were in the kitchen, sitting in the dark with just a candle lit. You were talking to them, asking if they could hear you. Caroline's hands flew to her face. That had happened exactly as described. She had been feeling lonely and had whispered into the quiet, asking for some kind of sign. Theresa's voice grew more intense, her Long Island accent curling around the words. Your dad says, that was me, sweetheart. The flicker in the candle, that was me answering you. And your mom says, I sat beside you the whole time. Caroline's shoulders shook as silent tears streamed down her face. Theresa paused, as if listening again. Then she said softly, they're both telling me they're proud of the woman you've become, even if you don't feel like you're doing enough. Your dad says, you're tougher than you think, kiddo. And your mom says, don't let the past steal the joy from your future. The audience was silent now, hanging on every word. Even those who weren't connected to the reading could feel the weight of it. Theresa placed a hand lightly on Caroline's arm. Honey, they're with you every single day. The love you share with them, that never dies. That's why they're here tonight. To make sure you know it. Caroline nodded, sobbing but smiling through her tears. She felt lighter, as though some invisible chain around her heart had loosened. As Theresa moved on to the next person, Caroline sat in her chair, clutching the tissue in her hand. She had come into the room unsure if she believed in any of this. But she was leaving with something she hadn't felt in years, peace. And maybe, just maybe, her parents' whispers from the other side would guide her for the rest of her life. However, it was a brisk autumn morning in Hicksville, New York. Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, sat at her kitchen table, her blonde hair as perfectly coiffed as ever, sipping her iced coffee even though the air outside was a little too chilly for it. The faint smell of bagels and fresh brewed coffee filled the house. Her daughter, Victoria, stomped down the stairs, a little more aggressively than usual. Theresa instantly felt something was wrong. Morning, Vic, Theresa said, looking up from her phone. Morning, Victoria mumbled, avoiding eye contact. She poured herself some cereal and sat across from her mother. Theresa tilted her head. All right, what's going on? You got that face. I'm about to tell Ma something I know she's not gonna like face. Victoria sighed and pushed her cereal away. Ma, I don't want to go to school anymore. Theresa froze, the straw from her iced coffee halfway to her lips. Excuse me? What do you mean you don't want to go to school? I mean I'm done, Victoria said. College isn't for me. I'm stressed out all the time, my grades are slipping, and I just feel like it's not the right path. I want to focus on other things. Theresa leaned back, folding her arms. Other things like what? TikTok dances? Influencer life? Becoming a full-time coffee drinker like your mother? She tried to add a little humor, but her voice had an edge of worry. Victoria shook her head. No, Ma. I'm serious. I've been thinking about opening my own small business. Maybe a beauty and skincare line. I've been learning more from doing online courses and practical stuff than I have from sitting in a lecture hall. Theresa tapped her nails on the table, thinking. She was torn. She wanted to support her daughter's dreams, but the thought of her quitting school felt like watching her walk out onto a tightrope without a safety net. Vic, listen. I'm not saying you have to stay in school forever, but you gotta be sure. You can't just wake up one morning, have a bad day, and quit. Life doesn't work like that. I've been thinking about it for months, Victoria insisted. I just didn't know how to tell you. Theresa took a deep breath. Her instinct as a mother told her to protect Victoria from making a choice she might regret, but her instinct as a medium told her to listen. Sometimes the strongest guidance comes when you stop pushing and start hearing. Later that day, Theresa had a reading scheduled with a client. But as she sat across from a woman, Theresa felt a spirit coming through that wasn't connected to her client at all. Oh boy, Theresa muttered. This is unusual. I think this message is for me. Her client looked surprised. For you? Yeah, Theresa said, eyes slightly glassy. I'm feeling an older male figure, strong father energy. He's telling me, let her try, Theresa. Don't clip her wings. It was her father. Theresa knew that feeling anywhere. In that moment, She remembered all the times in her life when she had taken leaps without a safety net, pursuing mediumship, stepping into TV without knowing what would happen, going through a divorce and still finding her footing. Her father's voice rang in her ears. You made it because you followed your gut, not because you followed someone else's plan. That evening, Theresa sat with Victoria in the living room. The TV was on, but neither of them was watching. Vic, I had a little moment today during a reading. Theresa began carefully. Papa came through. He told me I need to trust you, that I shouldn't clip your wings. Victoria's eyes softened. Really? He said that? Yeah, Theresa nodded. And I believe him. But here's the deal, if you're walking away from school, you gotta walk towards something with your whole heart. No half commitment. You'll work twice as hard because you won't have that degree to fall back on. You sure you're ready for that? Victoria nodded. I am. Theresa reached over, taking her daughter's hand. All right then, I'm gonna support you. But don't think for a second that means I won't be on your back, making sure you're doing the work. They both laughed, and for the first time in months, Victoria felt lighter. She wasn't just quitting school, she was stepping into a new chapter, with her mother's blessing and her grandfather's spirit watching over her. And for Theresa, it was another reminder that sometimes the hardest part of being a mom wasn't protecting your kids from falling, it was letting them fly, even if you were scared they might crash. However, it was a chilly autumn afternoon in Staten Island, and the three Sullivan sisters, Maggie, Claire, and Erin, were sitting at their favorite cafe, The Daily Grind, chatting over pumpkin spice lattes. The sisters were close, but life had pulled them in different directions. Maggie worked as a nurse, Claire was a high school art teacher, and Erin was finishing her last year in college. Lately, they hadn't spent much time together, so Maggie had arranged this little catch-up session. What they didn't know was that someone else had arranged a much bigger surprise. Across town, hidden in a production van parked just around the corner, the Impractical Jokers, Sal, Q, Murr, and Joe, were grinning like kids who had just found the cookie jar. Sal, who happened to be a distant friend of Maggie through a mutual acquaintance, had cooked up an idea for the show. He knew the sisters had always been obsessed with Long Island medium and the one and only Theresa Caputo. Claire even kept a signed copy of Theresa's book on her coffee table, and Erin had once dressed as Theresa for Halloween, complete with a big blonde wig and 5-inch heels. The production assistant posing as the radio rep entered the cafe, carrying a clipboard and a big smile. Hi. Are you the Sullivan sisters? She asked brightly. Maggie looked up cautiously. Yeah, why? You're our winners. You've been selected for an exclusive VIP experience, she announced, handing over golden envelopes. Claire opened hers to read the official letter, which said in glittery font, Congratulations. You've won the ultimate afternoon of relaxation, luxury, and a surprise guest appearance. Erin clapped her hands. Oh my God, this is like Oprah's favorite things, but in Staten Island. They were escorted into a black SUV, fully unaware that Murr was actually driving in disguise, wearing a fake mustache, baseball cap, and sunglasses that looked like they belonged in a 1980s cop movie. When they arrived at the spa, which was actually a decked-out studio set, the sisters were led into a lounge where Sal was waiting, pretending to be the wellness host. He was wearing a white robe and sipping cucumber water. Ladies, Sal said in an exaggerated Zen voice, welcome to your mind, body, and soul rejuvenation experience. But before we begin, we have a little energy alignment activity. The sisters, already suspicious, were given noise-canceling headphones and blindfolds. Then, in the background, Q sneaked in dressed as a healing guru, waving an oversized feather duster over their heads like it was sacred. Joe, wearing a wig that looked suspiciously like Theresa's, whispered, I'm sensing you like bagels, in a fake Long Island accent. The sisters giggled, still thinking this was part of the spa experience. Finally, the headphones came off, the blindfolds dropped, and standing in front of them, in her leopard print blouse, high heels, and unmistakable big blonde hair, was the real Theresa Caputo. For a second, no one moved. Erin's jaw dropped. Claire put her hands over her mouth. Maggie blinked 3 times like she couldn't believe her eyes. Hi girls, Theresa said warmly, her Long Island accent filling the room. I'm Theresa, and I have some very special messages for you today. The room went quiet. Suddenly, the joking atmosphere faded, replaced by a deep, emotional stillness. Theresa began walking slowly around the room, holding her hands in front of her like she always did on TV. One of you lost a grandmother recently within the last 5 years? I'm getting a strong presence. Very feisty woman. She's telling me she used to make you eat even when you weren't hungry. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. That's our Grandma May. She always cooked for us, even if we just ate. Theresa smiled. She's also saying, tell Maggie I see her in her scrubs.